The trade talk surrounding on Antonio Brown heated up overnight. In a statement today, Bills GM Brandon Beane said the team inquired about Brown, but the sides were unable to come to an agreement. Now, Adam Schefter reported earlier this week that a deal for Brown was expected to be in place by today. Today was the deadline. But this morning, they said nothing is close. Our Rob Demovsky also reporting that the Packers are not involved in the Brown sweepstakes. So, Max, what has happened to the Antonio Brown market here? Has the price changed for AB?
No, I don't think it has. I mean, I think he dropped his price a little by talking and talking and talking. But I said at the time, they ain't going to get a first-rounder, I don't think. He's expensive. He's older. He could be a problem in the locker room, I think teams would figure. But I do think a third-rounder is too low. Once it gets to that, a bunch of teams would jump in the mix. I've said from the beginning, a second-rounder. If it was a low second-round pick, maybe they'd add something like a fifth. And then when he kept talking, I said maybe even that went away. But I still think, guys, that the price is where it's been. It's someone will give up a second-round pick for Antonio Brown.
Well, Max Kellerman, if you're saying that things may have changed once he opened his mouth, then the price has changed.
By like a fifth-round pick. I mean, but it's still, the point is the top pick you're going to get is in the second round. That hasn't changed.
Well, let me say this to you. I think the price changed for him when he opened his mouth, obviously. And the second, Kevin Colbert said, we've got about 3 teams. You're talking about a receiver that's caught over 100 catches each of the last 6 seasons for a minimum of 1,287 yards per season each of the last 6 years, who's universally recognized as one of the top 2 receivers in all of football consistently over the last 5 or 6 years. And you're talking about 3 teams are interested in him as opposed to 10, 13, 15, 20. Think about that for a second. Why would it not be? Why would it not be more than 3? Why would it not be a plethora of teams that are interested in him? Because he's opened his mouth. He basically called out his quarterback. Not to say that Big Ben Roethlisberger should be absolved, because I think Antonio Brown was right with some of the things that he was saying. He's not totally wrong, but the reality is, by talking about your quarterback the way that you did, by talking about your coach the way that you did, by talking about the organization the way that you did, you've got a plethora of teams in the National Football League that's questioning whether or not they want that in their locker room. So that's problematic. And then he goes on the shop with LeBron James, and all of them sit. By the way, they did a great job. LeBron, Maverick, Jamie Foxx, 2 Chainz, Anthony Davis, the whole crew, they were all up in there. But for Antonio Brown to sit up there and mouth off the way that he did before he got traded, I don't think was the smartest thing in the world for him to do, because let me tell you something. The organizations, if they ain't watching the show, they're going to certainly get a clip of the show. They're going to certainly hear the kind of things that he was saying that was counterproductive to what he's ultimately trying to accomplish. So I think he's compromised himself. I think it's going to cost him dollars. Now, it might not matter in the end, because the Oakland Raiders may be desperate enough to pull the trigger, not to mention having him for Derek Carr to throw the ball to in Vegas next year, by the way, would be beautiful for Antonio Brown, and I hope it works out for him. But in the end, there is no question that this is not the way that you should go if you are trying to get paid while also trying to get traded.
In fact, Max, doesn't it look like the price for Brown has changed just this week? There have been reports from the Raiders being interested. There was a report in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. They were getting cold feet because of his contract demands. There's conflicting reports. Are the Packers in? Are they out? Yep. The Bills, are they in? Are they out? To me, it looks like his price is fluctuating and going down this week.
No, I know why you say that. And as I said, it could have changed by what else you get other than the second-round pick. Really, I'm talking about the principal price you pay. I never thought it was going to be a first-rounder for Antonio Brown because of his age and the contract that he's going to want and the price that you have to pay in terms of treasure, and the fact that he's seen as a locker room issuer, could be a chemistry disruptor. That always capped it, I thought, below a first-round pick. But no matter how many of those kind of elements you pile on, guys, once you hear Antonio Brown could be had for a third-round pick, I think a lot of teams who think they're not interested would be like, all right, we got to do it. It's a third-round pick for this guy. He's one of the best ever. So I always think it's within that second-round range. Guys, if you think that it was a second and a fifth in the beginning of the week and now it's a second, okay, I guess you could say the price is dropping. But my major point is he was always going to be for a second-round pick, and that hasn't changed.
Will Cain, Max Kellerman, I want to close by saying this, okay? Whether it's the weed issue that we talked about at the top of the show or Antonio Brown, the common denominator is that you have folks who are not in positions of actual power acting like they can do what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it. And my issue is not with them. It's with the message that they're projecting to a younger generation on the come up. I think it's sending the wrong message to give folks the indication that you can get away with doing what you want to do, and there aren't rules and regulations that you have to capitulate to. When I'm watching The Shop on HBO with LeBron, and again, they're doing a great job with it and what have you, it's very interesting yet annoying to me in this respect. LeBron James, who I'm incredibly proud of with all the things that he's doing, we have to pay attention to what he did and how he did it. This man established himself as being absolutely phenomenally great at what he did, educated himself, positioned himself, and empowered himself to be in the position that he's in. The Jay-Z's of the world, the Jamie Foxxes of the world, and others did the same thing. But I think it's foolhardy to perpetuate the message that to everybody that doesn't have their stature, cachet, dollars, wealth, etc., that you could go out there and just do what you want to do without repercussions and ramifications. That's not the message.
You and I are always on opposite sides of this issue when it comes down to this. I agree with the idea of respect for authority, because you must respect the fact that the authority means they do have a certain amount of power over your life. But that does not mean you capitulate to it. And I think that even if the authority can damage you in some way, if you believe you have a higher moral authority or even an obligation to yourself out of self-interest to go against that authority, to fight the power, then I say you do it.
Well, I'm saying my response and retort to that, Max Kellerman, is this. I'm not encouraging somebody to be punks and to sell their soul for $1 or anything like that. I'm not going there. What I am saying to you, however, is we don't disagree. I appreciate the position that you're coming from.